Scientists at the University of Helsinki, Harvard, and the University of California, San Francisco have made a startling diabetes breakthrough. A discovery that explains exactly what it is that causes perfectly normal guys to become diabetics. And that unlocks the answer to why insulin production fails. In fact, once you know what this secret is, which I'm going to show you in this short and extremely controversial presentation, you'll see that the real cause of your diabetes has nothing to do with the foods you are eating, or the lifestyle you choose, or even genetics. But instead, it's all because of this insulin-killing switch that's been turned on inside your body. A switch that's activated by one bizarre thing, and that you'd never in a million years suspect was the true cause of your diabetes. And that's just the beginning. Because as I'm about to show you inside this short but extremely controversial presentation, the same scientists who are medical experts at some of the most prestigious and well-respected universities in the world have not only discovered what this secret insulin-killing switch is, but also exactly how they believe you can shut it off. Just by following a simple protocol that you can do at home, and that doesn't require any medications, supplements, or dietary restrictions whatsoever. In fact, that's what I'll be showing you how to do during this brief video you're watching today. You'll be given explicit step-by-step instructions for using this exact diabetes-fighting protocol that's already saving thousands of lives around the world. And handed all of the evidence that proves irrefutably that by simply following this easy method for the next 27 days, you will have a powerful tool that can help return your blood sugar to normal levels, allow you to throw your syringes in the trash, and never have to say no to your favorite foods again. Just like 182,486 other former diabetics just like you, people who claim to have used this exact same method to destroy every single trace of their diabetes. Now you're just seconds away from discovering exactly what this diabetes battling home protocol is, and being shown exactly how you can use it for yourself to fight every single symptom of your disease in the next 27 days, possibly even sooner. Before I do that, however, let me quickly tell you who I am and how I stumbled upon a diabetes approach so powerful and so effective that the $245 billion diabetes industry would literally murder to keep it from you. My name is Martin Sanders. I'm 44 years old, and I've been married to my wife Tanya for 16 years now. I was one of those unlucky ones who got diagnosed with type 2 diabetes in my early 20s, and I was pretty shocked when just a few years later, our doctor diagnosed Tanya with diabetes too. Up until then, I'd thought that type 2 diabetes was something that happened to people who were really out of shape, or who ate extremely unhealthy diets. And I didn't realize that with more than 73 million pre-diabetics and more than 23 million full-blown diabetics in America today, getting diagnosed with diabetes or pre-diabetes is an almost certainty, regardless of our physical condition or diet. So just like tens of millions of other people out there who get hit with the bad news from their doctors, and suddenly have a diabetes life sentence hanging over their heads, Tanya and I both went on oral medications for our disease, along with insulin shots. Now, I don't know about you, but I hated those insulin shots from the beginning. The way I had to constantly monitor my blood sugar levels, then take a glistening, dripping syringe and shove it inside my belly every day. It felt so unfair. But what other option did I have? At the time, the only other choice was to eat an ultra-restrictive diet, something that was low in sugar, starches, carbs, fats, and basically everything else, and that made me feel more like a grass-eating cow than a human. And while a diet could help some, it quickly became clear that diet alone wouldn't actually reverse my diabetes, or my wife's diabetes either. In fact, that was one of the most frustrating things about our disease, that there was no real solution at all. Honestly, it made me kind of mad when I thought about it. I mean, each year we spend more than $100 billion in diabetes research, and yet it doesn't seem like we are at all closer to a permanent solution than we were when I first got diagnosed with my diabetes, which was back in the early 90s. What the hell is going on? I'd always find myself thinking. How haven't we figured this out yet? Well, there's actually a pretty simple answer to that question, but it's pretty horrifying and it's probably going to upset you a lot. I'll tell you what that answer is in just a minute. But for right now, let's just leave it at this. I was frustrated. And it all made me so sad that the average diabetic dies 10 years earlier than a non-diabetic. that both Tanya and I would probably be robbed of an entire decade of our lives together, that we might not live to ever see our grandchildren grow up, or to even be born in the first place, and that even in the meantime, we'd be sentenced to stabbing needles into our guts every single day we were alive. So yeah, I frequently found myself angry about the hand I'd been dealt. But like I said, what could I do? I didn't have any say in the matter, did I? Well, that was the attitude I carried with me for several years, until something terrible happened. A tragedy that was so unfair, so heartbreaking, that it permanently snapped me out of my complacency and sent me on a 2-year-long journey where I fought tooth and nail to find a permanent solution for my diabetes. This next part is hard for me to talk about, but I'm going to try. Because I do think it's important you understand what it was that led me to obsess over a permanent way to fight my diabetes. And that's now helped more than 182,000 people across the world to do just that. The turning point came 6 years ago, when my wife Tanya became pregnant for the first time. We'd been trying for years without any luck, and the doctor said that I might be sterile. So it felt like a miracle when it finally did happen. And we were so excited. We laughed and we cried. We started playfully arguing over what we'd name our baby, who our doctor told us would be a boy. I wanted to name him Jarvis after my father, but Tanya thought we should pick something simpler. And ultimately, it didn't matter. I was going to let her win. The important thing was that I was about to become a dad. But I say was, because that's when it happened. I still remember the day, July 14th, 2008. Tanya was 4.5 months into her pregnancy when she woke up with some abdominal pain. At first we thought maybe it was just some normal cramping. But after it continued to get worse, and because she was also having some additional feminine problems, we grew alarmed, and I rushed her to the ER. We told the doctor who was seeing us that she was pregnant, and he immediately performed a sonogram. And that's when I got the saddest news of my life. There was no heartbeat. The unborn child was dead. What had happened, we learned over the following week, was that my wife's diabetes was responsible for the lost pregnancy. We'd been aware prior to the miscarriage that having diabetes increased the risk of complications during pregnancy. But Tanya had been monitoring her blood sugar, taking her medication like she was supposed to, and we'd thought everything was okay. Well, obviously we were wrong. Her high blood sugar levels had caused the baby's organs to grow abnormally large, until ultimately they collapsed on the child, suffocating him. And as a result, diabetes had killed my son before he'd ever opened his eyes and experienced the world. Well, needless to say, Tanya was depressed. I was too. But I was also mad. I mean it, my blood was boiling. It was one thing for diabetes to ruin my life, or even Tanya's life for that matter. But the fact that this incurable disease had taken our unborn child from us and caused an innocent life to end all too soon was just too much to bear. We didn't deserve this punishment, just like you don't deserve to be a slave to your diabetes either. And I swore to myself right then and there that I would spend every waking second of my life finding a way to rid both of our bodies of this horrible disease for good. So from that point on, I became a detective. I started researching everything I could find about my disease. What caused it, what treatments that pharmaceutical companies were working on, what alternative treatment options might exist, and I didn't stop searching for more than 2 years. In the beginning, it was all extremely frustrating. Much as I'd suspected, while there was $100 billion being spent on diabetes research every year, countless foundations, for-profit companies, drug manufacturers involved, no one seemed to actually be researching a real solution. Instead, all of this money, which in sum was more cash than what we spend on education and transportation in the U.S. each year combined, was simply going towards finding new medications that helped us to manage our disease, keeping our blood sugar levels down as long as we took the drugs, but immediately ceasing to be effective when we stopped taking them. It just didn't make sense. Or at least it didn't until I finally pulled the wool from over my eyes and realized the disgusting truth behind what was going on, which was this: diabetes is a $245 billion per year industry. The pharmaceutical companies make an average of $14,000 per year off of every diabetic in America. They're the ones who fund all of the diabetes foundations and clinical that occurs. And they have absolutely zero incentive to find a real solution. That was my sickening revelation. I mean, it should have made sense, too. Given the pharmaceutical industry's massively long history of suppressing effective treatments from the American public, and of selling us side effect-filled or even deadly medications that don't work, why on earth did I think they'd give up $245 billion per year in profit to actually heal us of our diabetes? It just wasn't going to happen. And once I realized this, it became even clearer that if there was ever going to be a real diabetes solution discovered, it would come from us, the people, not the mega corporations who only care about their bottom line. So I doubled down on my research, spent literally 8 hours a day in front of my computer, and poured through every article, every scientific journal entry, every piece of raw data I could find. Another 3 months went by, with nothing to show for it, but I simply didn't care. Finding an answer to the problem of diabetes had become my life's mission, and nothing was going to stop me from making it come true. And finally, 11 months into my research, almost a year to the date of the miscarriage, I found the answer I'd been so desperately searching for. This answer came in the form of a study that had been performed by researchers at the University of Helsinki. They published it in a fairly obscure genetics journal called PLOS Genetics. And it was mostly random luck that I'd come across it at all. But as I began to read what the study had to say, my heart raced at a mile a minute. In it, the researchers revealed that they'd discovered a new type of protein called ERK7, and that it acted as an insulin killer. Something that actually freezes your body's insulin production and blocks your cells from absorbing any insulin that's already inside of you. As I kept reading, I saw that this ERK7 is actually inside both diabetics and non-diabetics. But that in diabetics, the ERK7 is in a state of constant activation, which means it's continuously keeping your insulin production suppressed. Now you're probably wondering how ERK7 does that. How does it kill your insulin production? It's actually pretty crazy. What scientists have found is that the ERK7 protein tricks your body into thinking it's in starvation mode. And it does that even if you're eating 3 healthy meals or 3,500 calories per day. You see, going into starvation mode doesn't have anything to do with whether or not you're eating enough. Instead, what researchers found was that this ERK7 protein is basically sending a false alarm to your body, and it tricks your regulatory system into thinking it's starving. As a result, your regulatory system goes into extreme conservation mode. It stops producing insulin, and it tries to keep all of your glucose in your bloodstream for energy rather than letting it get absorbed into your cells. Or, in other words, it makes you diabetic. And that's also why you probably feel tired or have low energy way too often. Because when your starving body is conserving its energy, it's not using that energy as fuel, and you feel exhausted. It's pretty wild, right? And if you think about it, I bet you can remember tons of times where you were a victim of ERK7 without even realizing it. For example, have you ever had a huge meal, like a Sunday brunch or a Christmas dinner, and felt absolutely stuffed, but then unexplainably found that you're hungry again just an hour or two later? Or did you ever find yourself doing work or sending an email, and suddenly you feel so hungry that you simply can't focus on anything until you go have a snack or a meal? In both cases, it's your ERK7 being a trickster and telling your body that you're starving, even though it couldn't be further from the truth. So like I said, I was pretty blown away by all of this, especially as I started doing even more reading about insulin-killing protein, and saw that everyone from scientists at Harvard University to the University of San Francisco was actively researching ERK7. But while the proof that ERK7 was causing almost all cases of type 2 diabetes was overwhelming, what I really wanted to know was this. If this newly discovered protein, called ERK7, is what's causing my diabetes, what do I need to do to destroy it? Unfortunately, the answer to this part was a little less clear. Because while there were numerous scientific studies showing that when you deactivate this evil protein, you can immediately reactivate your body's insulin production, fix your cell's ability to absorb that insulin, naturally lower your blood sugar levels, and beat your diabetes for good, none of the studies gave the specific way to do it. And so I again returned to my research, pouring through dozens of additional scientific studies, articles, and papers about ERK7. Until eventually, I did start to see a pattern. You see, what I found was that in every single study in which ERK7 protein had been successfully destroyed, there were always the same small group of organic nutrients mentioned as part of the treatment. This included a few special types of proteins, a few specific amino acids, and a few hyperactive enzymes. Things that on their own might not be powerful enough to destroy the diabetes-causing ERK7 protein inside your body, but that when combined together, overwhelm its insulin-destroying powers and return the human body to its normal, healthy functioning state. So I wrote down what each of these organic nutrients was, and I made a list of all the foods, herbs, and drinks that contained them. Ultimately, I came up with 11 simple foods that had all of the ERK7 killing nutrients I needed, plus a second list containing 6 surprising foods that research showed activated ERK7 and destroyed insulin. Then I put everything into a specific eating and supplementation plan, made myself promise to follow it for a full 30 days, and waited to see what would happen. Well, after the first 5 days, my blood sugar was about the same, and I have to admit I was a little nervous that maybe I was wasting my time. But because I really believed this could work, and I didn't have any other options, I stuck with it. And on day 8, something pretty remarkable occurred. My blood sugar levels went from 340 to 300 in a 24-hour period. Now, of course, that's still way higher than normal, but I'd rarely experienced such a dramatic drop before, and when my levels dropped to 285 the next day, 270 on day 10, 220 on day 14, 160 on day 19, and finally leveled off at 120 on the 27th day, the feeling of excitement, hope, and accomplishment I experienced was pretty hard to describe. I mean, it was really pretty incredible. Sure, I'd thought that adding these foods into my diet would help, but I hadn't realized they would reduce my blood sugar levels that drastically, and especially not in a 27-day period. Yet, the readings were right in front of my eyes, and when I had my wife Tanya try this same method for herself, it was the exact same thing all over again. On day 1, she was having fewer food cravings. On day 3, she started feeling a lot more energized. On day 8, the blood sugar levels started to drop. And by day 27, she was back to a completely normal glucose reading in her body. Soon Tanya and I had stopped using our oral medications and insulin shots altogether, and before I knew it, 3 months had passed, and we still weren't on any medications. We were eating pretty much whatever we wanted, and neither of our blood sugar levels had gone above 120 one single time. Oh yeah, plus I even lost 20 pounds. Because even though I could eat everything from chocolate fudge brownies to hearty beef chili, and not worry about it affecting my blood sugar, now that ERK7 in my body had been destroyed, I simply didn't have the strong food cravings that I'd used to have, and I was naturally eating a healthier amount. Well, it shouldn't come as a shock to hear that I felt pretty emotional about everything that was happening. Not only had my more than 2 years of work finally paid off, I appeared to be completely free from a disease that had been holding me hostage for decades, and that had tragically and unjustly killed my unborn child, which is why I became almost evangelical about sharing my diabetes protocol with others. I figured that if what I'd discovered could make such a huge difference in our lives, and if it could have possibly saved an innocent life, I had a moral duty to share it with the millions of other people out there who were just like us. People who were tired of being a slave to their disease, of always ordering salads off the menu, of being told, "You can't eat that," as if they were a toddler at the dinner party, and who were afraid, because deep down in the pit of their stomach, they knew that their life expectancy was 3,650 days shorter than the average non-diabetics. And so, I wrote out a set of explicit step-by-step details for how my diabetes-fighting protocol worked, and I started giving it to every single diabetic or pre-diabetic that I knew. The results were pretty amazing. Across the board, every single person who used my diabetes method said they saw their symptoms vanish within their very first month. Many times even within the first 15 days. Even more encouragingly, this research-based protocol seemed to work no matter how long the person using it had been a diabetic, how high their blood sugar levels had been at the beginning, and no matter what age they were. And as my friends kept sharing this life-saving method I'd come up with their friends and their friends' friends, it wasn't long before more than 975 people had used this same protocol to fight back against every single symptom of their diseases, to throw their needles in the trash, and to suddenly find they had their lives back. Encouraged and emboldened by what was happening, I started sending out copies of my diabetes protocol to research teams, foundations, and university labs across the country. I figured there was simply no way they wouldn't publish this, especially given the flawless success rate it had. But it turns out I was pretty naive about that part. Because even though I got dozens of excited emails and letters from research department chairs, world-famous scientists, medical experts at some of the most prestigious hospitals in the world, and every single one of them said that they were amazed by what I'd discovered, that they had independently analyzed both my protocol and my results, and that it was 100% scientifically sound, not one single research team would publicly support my findings. They all said pretty much the same thing. This works. If we're consulting with individual patients, we'll share it with them. But we simply cannot put our names on your findings publicly. If we did, we'd lose our research funding faster than you can snap your fingers. It's not personal, it's just that the pharmaceutical firms who support our research would never go for this. They simply do not want an effective diabetes-fighting protocol getting out to the public, especially one that they don't control. It was sort of funny, honestly, seeing all these decorated PhDs and tenured university researchers sending me such pathetic apologies. But while part of me wanted to laugh about the whole thing, a much larger part of me wanted to rage. I mean, I guess I wasn't surprised. I already knew that the drug manufacturers and big pharma had zero interest in finding a permanent diabetes solution, especially when they could make so much more money by just keeping all of the suffering individuals out there on life support. But still, how dare they try and suppress my discovery? How dare they keep something from you, something that could not only fight every single trace of your diabetes within the next 27 days, but that could possibly add another 10 years back to your life, so that you could happily live into your 80s or even 90s and cherish every precious moment of time with your loved ones. The more I thought about it, the more my anger festered, and the clearer it became what I needed to do, which is when I decided to make this website and to publish my entire diabetes protocol right here on this page, so that anyone who wanted could start using it immediately in an effort to attack their diabetes for good. I'm calling my protocol Diabetes Deactivated, because once you deactivate the ERK7 that's in your body, both your insulin production and your insulin absorption rapidly return to normal. And inside, you'll be given the 3 steps you need to wage war against your type 2 diabetes. You'll get the 11 foods that stop the evil ERK7 protein from being activated inside your body. Remember, that's huge because ERK7 is what stops your body from producing or absorbing insulin. You'll discover the 6 foods that you are eating almost every day and that actually put your body into starvation mode, even if you feel full after eating. You could eat 4,000 calories worth of these foods in a single sitting, and your body would still be tricked into activating its starvation system. And honestly, some of these deadly foods are pretty surprising, especially if you think regularly eating salads is healthy. Inside Diabetes Deactivated, you're also going to be shown a simple technique that I developed, and that I like to call eating for fullness. Using the eating for fullness techniques, you'll not only feel full and satisfied after each meal you eat, but you'll actually be asked to eat more of the foods you love. Things like hot apple pie with ice cream, a smothered cheeseburger with fried onion strings, a sweet and smoky barbecue brisket sandwich, you name it. Plus, not only does eating more of the foods you love help with your body's insulin production and absorption, you'll even be losing weight while you do it. The reason why is that once you're adding the fullness-activating foods I'll give you inside Diabetes Deactivated, you'll stop having those bizarre food cravings that always seem to hit you at random. You'll be eating at a healthy, normal level each day without even thinking about it. And you'll feel better, have more energy, and watch as much as 20 pounds melt right off your belly in your very first month. Diabetes Deactivated contains everything you need to radically fight your diabetes in the next 30 days, guaranteed. And there's no strict diet, no meal plan to follow, no low-calorie recipes, none of that garbage. Instead, you're given one list of foods that will stop the ERK7 from being activated inside your body, a second list of foods that activate starvation mode and frees up your insulin production, and a simple step-by-step guide for eating for fullness. That's all it takes. Just check out the lists. Use the easy-to-follow guide, and in the next 27 days, you will have waged war against every single symptom of your diabetes. To date, 182,486 people have already used Diabetes Deactivated to do just that. People like Calvin Leonard of Provo, Utah, who writes, "I heard about Diabetes Deactivated from a friend, and I thought he was crazy. There are a lot of snake oil salesmen out there, and I just didn't believe that simply adding a few foods to my diet could permanently cure my diabetes. Honestly, the only reason I even tried your program was to show my friend what a fool he was. Except as it turns out, the joke's on me. 14 days is all it took for my blood sugar levels to go from 220 to an even 100. It's now been 5 months since that happened, and the highest reading I've had is 110. This is ridiculous. I simply can't believe how well it works. It's a tragedy that the mainstream media won't cover what's happening right now, because if they did, we could save millions of lives." And Harris Fowler of Bowling Green, Kentucky, who says, "I'm a pretty big science nut, and I'd actually heard of ERK7 before watching your video. In fact, I was even pretty aware of the fact that it was a major cause of my diabetes. But what I hadn't been able to figure out was how to stop that ERK7 from freezing up my insulin. And that's where your guide was such a lifesaver. The way I look at it, you saved me thousands of hours of independent research here. Instead, you took everything that's already been published, found the common thread, and then applied it to diabetes treatment in a brilliant way. It's quite impressive. And you know what else is impressive? The results. I haven't had an insulin shot in 7 months, and now my doctor has even gone so far as to declare me diabetes-free. Given the fact that I was considered diabetic for more than 30 years, I'd say that's a pretty big deal. Thanks." Or Nellie Branch of Sumter, South Carolina, who says, "I imagine when most people write to you about Diabetes Deactivated, it's going to be in regards to their blood sugar levels. I can certainly understand why. Personally, my blood sugar levels went from 260 to 115 within the first 21 days on your program. But equally impressive to me was the amount of weight I lost. Because I no longer have any of those terrible food cravings I used to, I've lost 25 pounds since starting on your program." Or Professor Solomon Ortega of Cambridge, Massachusetts, who says, "As an expert in human disease, I'm always wary of new products that promise dramatic results. That's why I was so pleasantly surprised by Diabetes Deactivated. Not only is the science fundamentally sound, but the program works. Diabetes has run in my family for years, but it won't be a problem for us any longer. Already both myself personally and my son, Christopher, have used your simple treatment, and I'm pleased to report that all of our symptoms are now gone. It's a tragedy that my university colleagues won't help support this. They're making a huge mistake." Those are just a few of the thousands of emails, letters, and phone calls I get from real Diabetes Deactivated users each month. This is a program that gives you back control of your health and lifts the horrible death sentence that's been hanging over your head ever since your diagnosis. And with that in mind, let me ask you a simple question. What would you give to get your life back again? To not have to take painful shots of insulin every day. Imagine being able to savor the taste of a soft, fresh, buttery donut again. To know you won't have to spend the rest of your life sticking yourself with syringe after syringe or popping pills, drugs that cost you hundreds or even thousands of dollars of your hard-earned money each year. Cash you could be using to take your family out to your favorite steakhouse each month, but that's currently being hand-delivered right into the plush pockets of the same pharmaceutical conglomerates who are hell-bent on keeping you sick. Once you have Diabetes Deactivated, you'll never need to spend another second researching restrictive diets or scanning restaurant menus to see what you can and can't eat, and could actually be scarfing down more of those very foods that used to be off limits without having them affect your glucose levels one single bit. So it should be pretty clear that there is no other program or product like Diabetes Deactivated out there. This is a program that naturally targets your body's insulin production and that addresses every single symptom of your diabetes in the next 27 days. And by just following the 3 simple steps you'll get inside, you can join the more than 182,000 other former diabetics who used to be just like you, but who now have their health, their energy, their freedom, and their lives back. And given all of this, you can probably understand why I initially planned to charge $299 for access to Diabetes Deactivated. I mean, compared to paying $800 for an appointment with some pricey specialist, or buying yet another restrictive weight and diet guide, something that not only leaves you constantly hungry, but that also doesn't eliminate your need to spend hundreds or even thousands on medications. $299 for Diabetes Deactivated really is a steal. But here's the thing, this isn't about making money. It is about reducing the number of people in the world with diabetes. so that they can enjoy an extra 10 Christmas dinners with their families. Or be there to support their spouses well into old age. I only wish I'd known about all of the vital information inside Diabetes Deactivated when Tanya became pregnant. Because if I had, perhaps my son would still be alive today. It's too late for my unborn son, and that's a tragedy I have to live with forever. But it's not too late for you. And considering this program means so much to me personally, what kind of man would I be if I tried to get rich off Diabetes Deactivated by charging you hundreds of dollars for it? How would I be able to live with myself each day? I wouldn't, which is why I've chosen to do something pretty drastic here and give you the food lists, the Eating for Fullness guide, the daily plan, the step-by-step directions, and everything else that's included in Diabetes Deactivated for just $39. To start using it right now, just click the yellow button you see below this video right now. As soon as you do that, you'll be directed to my secure checkout page, where you simply need to fill out your order details. Then the second you have completed your checkout, you'll receive instant access to the entire Diabetes Deactivated program through a special members-only area I've set up. And it really is instant access too. You'll be able to view the lists, the guides, the instructions, and everything else right from your computer, tablet, or smartphone. And you can also download everything or print out as many copies as you want. Plus, because I am borderline fanatical about getting this program into your hands today, and because I know just how life-saving it can be, I'm going to go one step further by guaranteeing your investment in Diabetes Deactivated with a full 100% 60-day money-back guarantee. Which means you can start using the whole program, watching in amazement as your blood sugar levels drop by 40, 90, 150, even 200 points over the next 27 days, and enjoying more energy and a toner physique than you've had in decades, with absolutely zero risk on your end. Instead, if you're not blown away by the results you get with Diabetes Deactivated for any reason whatsoever, just send me a quick email to the private address I'll give you inside the members area, and I will instantly refund your whole investment with zero questions asked. So go ahead and make the simple decision to change your life today with Diabetes Deactivated by clicking that yellow button you see below the video right this instant and join the 182,000 people who made the right decision to click this button and who have never looked back. This is about ensuring a longer, healthier, and happier life for you and all of those you love. But if you're really serious about seizing this opportunity, throwing out your medications, and reclaiming a decade of your life, you need to act now. I talk to more lawyers each day than most people talk to in a lifetime. A few of them are legal experts I've hired to help me keep this site up. But overwhelmingly, the phone calls I get are from the suits and ties at some of the biggest pharmaceutical conglomerates in the world. They're trying everything to get this website down, from bribes to threats. And whenever they do finally decide to bring legal action against me, which they've promised they will, I simply won't have the money to fight back, and I'll be forced to take this website down. So I urge you to not wait on this risk-free decision today, something that could save your life along with the lives of so many that you love. Ultimately, the choice is yours. You could just go ahead and click out of this video right now, and that's your right. But a month from now, as you're slowly walking toward your pack of insulin, dreading the deep pain of that sharp, shiny needle, or about to order that dry, lifeless salad, while trying to ignore the traveling aroma of the delicious fettuccine alfredo with specks of Parmesan that could melt in your mouth, aren't you going to be asking yourself why you didn't at least give Diabetes Deactivated a shot? In that same amount of time, as soon as 15 days from now, you could be 100% diabetes-free. Instead of wasting away, not doing the things you want to do, or eating the food you want to eat, throwing away thousands of dollars on doctor bills and medications, and pricking yourself once a day for the rest of your life. So go ahead and join the 182,000 people who've already kicked their diabetes to the curb. Click that yellow button you see below this video right now. And in literally 1 minute from now, you could be well on your way to changing your diabetes prognosis forever. Here's to your long and healthy life. Martin Sanders. Hey, are you still on this page? No worries. What you just heard was unlike anything else you've ever been told before, and you probably have some questions. That's actually pretty common. So let me go ahead and answer some of the most common questions people ask me after they've viewed this presentation. 1. If there's really a naturally effective way to fight my diabetes, why have I never heard of it before? Money. It's that simple. Diabetes is a $245 billion per year industry, and drug manufacturers have absolutely zero incentive to permanently eliminate this disease. They'd prefer to keep you on life support so that they can keep raking in record profits and proudly showing off their bottom lines to their friends in the 1%. The worst part is, these greedy companies are the same ones who fund almost all diabetes research in the world. Their executives sit on the boards of diabetes foundations. They give hundreds of millions to universities. They sponsor the most prestigious medical journals. But they aren't doing any of this to be nice or help us common folk. They're doing it to make sure that everyone from the National Diabetes Association to the Journal of Disease Prevention only publish what the drug corps want them to publish. It's a sad reality, but a reality nonetheless. 2. What is ERK7 again, and why is it responsible for my diabetes? ERK7 is a type of protein that was recently discovered by scientists. It's inside all of us, regardless of whether or not we're diabetic. The problem is that for diabetics, this ERK7 is always activated. That's an issue because ERK7 makes your body think it's in starvation mode. As a result, your body stops all insulin production and doesn't allow your cells to absorb any insulin that already exists. As a result, you become diabetic. 3. So how does diabetes deactivated stop ERK7? After poring through countless studies, published papers, and other research archives, I realized that there were a few organic nutrients that have been shown to deactivate the ERK7 protein. By simply getting specific foods into your diet that contain these nutrients, you can instantly turn off ERK7 so that it no longer suppresses your insulin production and absorption. Once your insulin production returns to normal and your cells can absorb that insulin, then from a medical standpoint, you would no longer be considered diabetic. 4. Is diabetes deactivated a permanent protocol? Yes. Simply continue to get the simple foods I share with you into your diet, and you'll never need another diabetes medication or insulin shot again. Also, you should note that you don't have to eat all of these foods every single day. Instead, you just want to add them to a few of your meals, and you'll be good to go. 5. Can I really eat anything I want after I've used diabetes deactivated? Pretty much. There are those 6 foods that seem to really activate ERK7, so you'll want to cut back on those. It may mean eating a little less salad each week, but most people can handle that without too much of a problem. 6. What exactly is included in diabetes deactivated? Inside, you'll be given the 3 steps you need to immediately fight your type 2 diabetes. You'll get the 11 foods that stop the evil ERK7 protein from being activated inside your body. You'll discover the 6 foods that you are eating almost every day and that actually put your body into starvation mode, even if you feel full after eating. You're also going to be shown a simple technique called eating for fullness, which is where you'll actually be asked to eat more high-fat, high-sugar, and calorie-rich foods you love. 7. What are the terms of the guarantee you mentioned? It's a full 60-day, 100% money-back guarantee. That means you can try diabetes deactivated for 2 whole months with absolutely zero risk. If you don't see a dramatic improvement to your diabetes symptoms during that time, you simply send me an email and I'll refund your entire investment with 0 questions asked. 8. Okay, how do I get started? Just click the yellow button you see below this video. You'll then go to a secure checkout page where you'll enter your order details. As soon as you're done, you'll get instant access to the entire Diabetes Deactivated program. You can view everything right on your computer, your smartphone, or your tablet. You can also download it or print out as many copies as you'd like.